Imagine waking up before dawn, not to the sound of an alarm clock, but to the gentle lowing of cattle and the first light of morning filtering through handmade curtains. This is the daily reality for Sarah and Jacob, a young Amish couple whose life in rural Pennsylvania represents a vanishing way of existence that most of us have only read about in books. Their story isn't just about rejecting modern technology. It's about embracing a rhythm of life that connects them directly to the land, to their faith, and to each other in ways that seem almost impossible in our hyper-connected world. Today, we're stepping into their world to witness how they transform simple flour and water into massive loaves of bread that feed their entire community, how they raise animals with methods passed down through generations, and how they've mastered the art of survival without a single modern convenience. By the time the sun rises fully over their farm, Sarah has already been working for 2 hours. The wood-fired oven in their summer kitchen, a separate building behind the main house, needs time to reach the perfect temperature for baking. She starts by splitting kindling from seasoned oak, her movements practiced and efficient. The fire catches quickly, and soon the stone interior begins to absorb the heat that will transform her dough into golden loaves. While the oven heats, Sarah begins mixing her bread dough in quantities that would astound most home bakers. She's preparing enough for 12 massive loaves, each weighing nearly 4 pounds. The recipe is deceptively simple. Freshly ground wheat flour from their own grain, water from the well Jacob dug by hand 3 years ago, salt, a small amount of honey from their beehives, and wild yeast starter that her mother gave her on their wedding day. That starter is over 30 years old, fed and maintained through countless batches, carrying with it the flavor of decades. Sarah doesn't measure anything with cups or scales. Her hands know the ratios by feel, developed through years of daily baking. She kneads the dough with a rhythmic motion that looks almost like a meditation, her strong arms working the gluten until the texture is exactly right. Meanwhile, Jacob is in the barn beginning the morning milking. Their small dairy herd consists of 6 Jersey cows, each one raised from a calf born on their property. He knows every animal by name, by temperament, by the particular sound they make when they're content. Milking is done entirely by hand, a skill that takes months to develop properly. Each cow gives between 3 and 4 gallons per day, and the work takes Jacob nearly 90 minutes every morning and evening. The relationship between Jacob and his animals goes far beyond simple husbandry. These cows represent food security, income from selling excess milk and butter to their community, and a living connection to generations of farmers who work this same land. He talks to them while he works, checking their health with practiced eyes, noting every detail of their condition. After milking, the fresh milk is carried in heavy steel cans to the spring house, a small stone building constructed over a natural spring where the cold water keeps everything at a constant 45 degrees. Sarah will use some of this milk later to make butter, cheese, and the rich cream that goes into special occasion baking. By mid-morning, the bread dough has risen to double its size, and the oven has reached the critical temperature. Sarah tests it the old way, holding her hand inside for a count of 10. If she can keep it there comfortably, the temperature is right. She shapes each massive loaf with confident hands, scoring the tops with a sharp blade to allow for expansion. The loaves go into the oven directly on the hot stone floor, and within minutes, the entire kitchen fills with an aroma that no commercial bakery could ever replicate. While the bread bakes, Sarah tends to her garden, which covers nearly half an acre behind the house. This garden is their primary source of vegetables from spring through fall, and it's planted with a precision that reflects years of observation. She knows exactly which varieties grow best in their soil, which ones need to be planted in succession to ensure continuous harvest, and how to save seeds from the strongest plants to improve next year's crop. Every plant serves multiple purposes. The herbs aren't just for cooking, but also for medicine. The flowers aren't merely decorative, but attract the pollinators that ensure good fruit set on the tomatoes and squash. Even the weeds are managed rather than eliminated, with some like dandelions and purslane harvested for salads and medicinal teas. Jacob spends his late morning working with the draft horses, massive Belgian animals that serve as the farm's primary power source. These horses pull the plow, the hay wagon, the cultivator, and the family buggy. Training and maintaining a good team of draft horses is considered one of the highest skills in Amish farming, and Jacob takes immense pride in his pair, named Samson and Delilah. The relationship between farmer and draft horse is built on mutual respect and clear communication. Jacob uses voice commands, subtle rein movements, and an understanding of horse psychology to guide these powerful animals through complex tasks. A good team can plow an acre in a day, pull loads that would require a small tractor, and work for decades with proper care. Today, they're cultivating the cornfield, pulling a mechanical cultivator between the rows to control weeds without chemicals. The work is physically demanding, requiring Jacob to walk miles behind the horses while managing the implement. But it's also deeply satisfying. He's caring for his land without depleting it, building soil health that will sustain crops for generations. When Sarah pulls the bread from the oven just after noon, the loaves are perfect. The crusts are deep mahogany, crackling as they cool, and the interiors are tender with an open, irregular crumb structure that only long fermentation and high heat can create. Some of these loaves will feed their own family for the week. Others will be given to elderly neighbors who can no longer bake for themselves. A few will be sold at the community market, providing a small cash income. The afternoon brings different tasks. Sarah processes the morning's milk, churning butter in a hand-cranked device that takes about 40 minutes of steady work. The buttermilk that separates out becomes the base for tomorrow's pancakes and biscuits. She also begins preparing the evening meal, which will include vegetables from the garden, fresh bread, butter, and occasionally meat from animals they've raised themselves. Jacob moves to fence repair, a never-ending task on any farm. Their fences are all wood, carefully maintained to keep animals in their designated pastures and protect the garden from wandering livestock. He cuts new posts from their woodlot, selecting straight young trees and leaving the forest healthier for the harvest. Every piece of their farm is interconnected in a complex web of sustainability. The animals produce manure that fertilizes the garden and fields. The garden waste feeds the chickens and pigs. The pigs root up stumps and clear brush. The chickens control insects and fertilize the orchard. The trees provide lumber, firewood, and windbreaks. Nothing is wasted, and every element supports the others in a system refined over centuries. As evening approaches, the second milking begins, and Sarah prepares the evening meal. The family eats together, without television or phones or any distraction beyond conversation and the simple pleasure of food they produced with their own hands. After dinner, there's still work to be done. Jacob tends to the evening animal care, ensuring everyone has fresh water and feed. Sarah cleans the kitchen and begins soaking beans for tomorrow's soup. They work by the light of oil lamps, the soft glow creating an atmosphere that encourages quietness and reflection. Before bed, they sit together on the porch, watching the stars emerge in a sky unmarred by light pollution. This is their time to plan, to talk about the farm's needs, to share the small observations that make up a life lived in close contact with nature. They discuss which fields need attention, whether the fence in the north pasture will last another season, how the apple trees are setting fruit. Their survival isn't just about having the skills to live without electricity or modern tools. It's about understanding systems, about patience, about accepting that some things can't be rushed and that the rhythms of nature ultimately determine the schedule. It's about community, knowing their neighbors will help during harvest and that they'll return that help when needed. It's about faith that guides their choices and gives meaning to the work. Sarah and Jacob aren't living in the past. They're living in a present that honors tradition while adapting to current realities. They use some modern materials when they make sense. They benefit from advances in veterinary care for their animals. They sell products to the wider world. But they've chosen to maintain the core of a lifestyle that prioritizes family, community, faith, and a direct connection to the sources of their sustenance. Their life requires more physical work than most of us can imagine. It demands skills that take years to develop. It means sacrifice, especially of conveniences we take for granted. But it also provides something increasingly rare: absolute clarity about where their food comes from, confidence in their ability to provide for themselves, and a daily rhythm that aligns with natural cycles rather than fighting against them. As night settles over their farm, with the animals bedded down and the house quiet, Sarah and Jacob have the satisfaction of a day well spent. Tomorrow will bring similar work, varied only by the season and the weather, and they'll approach it with the same dedication and skill. This is their happy life, built not on what they have, but on what they can do, what they know, and who they can depend on when times get hard.